All right. Yesterday and last week, we talked about muscle proteins, right? You should know your muscle proteins. What are their names, where they are. Okay, now today we will talk about two topics. First is regulation of muscle contraction. What's the signal to initiate your muscle to contract? Okay, and then when the signal comes, what happens during muscle contraction? It is the actin and myosin interaction, right? So let's do a little bit review. We have seen this diagram before, right? We said the muscle, skeletal muscle, has their cell membrane fused together. So outside the fiber, there's a sarcolemma, which is the cell membrane, all right? And all the cell membrane fused together to form a tube, like T-tubule. The plasma membrane will invaginate and to form tubules that surround myofibrils, all right? Here's another diagram to show you. This is the cross-sectional view. All right, so if you cut through here and you can see like this, right? The plasma membrane, sarcolemma, right, will invaginate. So the tubes, T-tubule, okay, transverse tubule. T-tubule will surround the myofibrils, okay? And there are nerve endings surrounding the muscle fiber, okay? So when your brain tells your muscle to contract, that's a nerve signal, right? Excitation. So the excitation signal sent to the muscle tissue allow your muscle to contract. This is called excitation contraction coupling, abbreviated as EC coupling. All right? Okay, so what happens when the nerve signal comes, right? Here's another diagram of your muscle tissue, skeletal muscle. This is the sarcolemma membrane, cell membrane, all right, and continuous with the T-tubules. And in here, there's a organelle, sarcoplasmic reticulum, also called ER, right? 内质网, and other muscle proteins, okay? So when the nerve signal comes, it changes the membrane voltage. Okay, the membrane voltage of your sarcolemma changes. And on the T-tubule, right, this is continuous with the sarcolemma membrane. On the T-tubule, there's an ion channel, a calcium channel that is voltage sensitive. Okay, so it senses the voltage change, and then the channels opens, which allows calcium entering the cell from outside, entering the cell, all right? And this calcium entering the calcium triggers another channel on the SR membrane, okay? This is also a calcium channel. It's activated by calcium. Okay, so the calcium entering the cell binds to this channel and trigger it to open. All right, when this channel is open, then calcium stored in the SR, sarcoplasmic reticulum, will rush out to the cytoplasma. Okay, so then the concentration of calcium in cytoplasma increase. All right, and then calcium binds to the troponin C in the sarcomere to initiate muscle contraction. Okay, so when your brain tells your muscle to stop contract, the voltage change stops, right? And this channel closed. No more calcium entering the cell. Therefore, this channel closed and no more calcium coming out from the SR to the cytoplasma. But there's still some calcium in the cytoplasma, right? There's still some calcium bound to the muscle proteins. So now what happens? There's another channel, another protein on the SR membrane. It's called calcium ATPase. Okay, because it is on the SR membrane, so it's called SERCA. SRCA, SERCA. Okay, it's a calcium pump. What's the difference between calcium channel and calcium pump? 这两个有什么不一样？ Calcium channel and calcium pump.
Energy.
What kind of energy?
ATP.
It uses ATP to do what?
Transportation.
Transport calcium. Why this channel doesn't need energy to do transportation?
Because it relies on concentration gradients.
From
High concentration.
high concentration to low concentration, right? This is down concentration gradient. From high concentration to low concentration, right? From SR, which is a storage place for calcium. Therefore, it has high calcium concentration. And cytoplasma normally has low calcium concentration. Usually, the concentration in cytoplasma, we call it relaxed normally, relaxed state. The calcium concentration would be less than micromolar. Okay, that's low. So in here, there's much higher calcium concentration, right? So the channel open, it's a passive transport, 被动运输, right? Passive. Calcium will move from high concentration to low concentration. But for here, calcium ATPase, it pumps calcium from low concentration against gradient to higher concentration. It requires the energy of ATP hydrolysis. Okay, that's why it's called calcium pump. So when the nerve signal stops, SERCA continues to pump calcium from cytoplasma back to the SR. Therefore, the cytoplasma calcium concentration decrease. Right? So no more calcium binds to troponin C and the muscle relax. Okay? Good. So it's not hard, right? 可以吗？没有那么难呐，哈。All right. Then what happens? Okay, we said calcium binds to troponin C in muscle protein, right? So what happens then? Remember, we see thin filament proteins, right? We have actin filament, and on top of actin, we have tropomyosin and troponin complex. And we also know that calcium binds to troponin C. So when also on the actin, because actin interact with myosin, so there are myosin binding site on actin molecule. Okay, this black dot refers to the myosin binding site. Okay, and normally tropomyosin sits on this site. It covers the myosin binding site on actin in relaxed state. All right, so when calcium binds to troponin C and induce a conformational change of tropomyosin and troponin together, allowing this filament, tropomyosin, move away from the myosin binding site to expose this binding site. All right, we use another diagram. In the absence of calcium, tropomyosin sits on actin filaments and block the myosin binding site. When calcium binds to troponin C, it induces a conformational change. So the tropomyosin move away, all right? Move to the side. Therefore, expose the myosin binding site on actin. So now myosin can interact with this actin. Okay? So here's another scheme to show you. In the relaxation, resting muscle, okay, myosin binding site is masked by tropomyosin. This means actin binds tropomyosin, binds troponin. Right? In the presence of calcium binds to troponin C actually. It induces a conformational change of tropomyosin and troponin. Therefore, expose the myosin binding site, which allow myosin to interact with actin. That's called contraction. Okay? And then once the calcium is removed, tropomyosin, troponin slide back to the original position. Then it's relaxation because myosin cannot interact with actin anymore. Okay. So to summarize, we show a short video. Let's see. Okay. Hold on a second. This one.
The muscle cell. An action potential sweeps over the plasma membrane of the muscle cell. The action potential releases internal stores of calcium that flow through the muscle cell and trigger a contraction. Muscle cells have an elaborate architecture.
Okay, these are the membranes, right? Invagination.
Deep tubular invaginations of the plasma membrane, called T-tubules, crisscross the cell. When the cell is stimulated, a wave of depolarization, that is, an action potential, spreads
Okay,
through the synapse
change the membrane
and
voltage.
via the T-tubules deep into the cell. A voltage-sensitive protein in these membranes
That's the ion channel.
in the adjacent sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is the major calcium store in muscle cells, thereby releasing a burst of calcium ions all throughout the cytosol of the cell. Within a contractile bundle,
All right, so then
muscle cells,
calcium
the
binds to the muscle
calcium
protein.
interacts with protein filaments to trigger contraction. In each contracting unit, or sarcomere, thin actin and thick myosin filaments are juxtaposed, but cannot interact in the absence of calcium. This is because myosin binding sites on the actin filaments are all covered by a rod-shaped protein called tropomyosin.
Okay, tropomyosin,
A calcium
troponin.
complex called troponin is attached to the end of each tropomyosin molecule.
Okay, that's the myosin binding site.
Floods the cell. Troponin binds to it, moving tropomyosin off the myosin binding sites. Opening the myosin binding site on the actin filaments allows the myosin motors to crawl along the actin, resulting in a contraction of the muscle fiber. Calcium is then quickly returned to the sarcoplasmic reticulum by the action of a calcium pump. Without calcium, myosin releases actin, and the filaments slide back to their original positions.
Okay, that's relaxation, all right? So coming back, let's see, PowerPoint. All right, so that's called porcine stress syndrome. Porcine refers to pigs, okay? Porcine stress syndrome. What happens to those pigs that died? They have malignant hyperthermia. Malignant, 恶性的, 恶性的. Hyper, higher, right? Thermia related to temperature, which means those pigs have very high body temperature. 这个我们叫恶性高热，恶性高热。Because of the stress, it caused the pig to raise their body temperature. till too high, so the pigs died. Right, sudden death, 猝死, huh? And it's a recessive, genetic recessive disorder, okay? Due to some ion channel, calcium channel on the muscle tissue, okay? Usually happens when you breed the pigs. 因为我们育种哈，你要好吃的猪肉，对不对？育种那个做杂交之类的，就很容易有一些遗传的基因的缺失，就变成一种疾病哈，就那个。All right, so it's a genetic disorder. In human, we also have this type of disease. It's called malignant hyperthermia. Usually, it's the mutation on these two receptors. Okay, which is the calcium channel on the T-tubule and also on the SR membrane. Right? So what happens? When the ion channel has mutations, it cannot close. It will be on all the time. It will be turned on all the time, means it opens all the time. If it opens, calcium entering the cell, calcium is also released to the cytoplasma, so they triggers muscle contract. The muscle cannot stop. It keeps contracting, right? And muscle contraction requires energy. They use the energy from ATP to do the muscle to do the contraction. So what happens is the ATP in the cell is used up. So we have to do respiration using glycolysis to break down more glucose from collagen. 肝糖分解，糖解作用 alright, and then to release 三碳的丙酮酸 entering mitochondria, respiration, TCA cycle, and then release more ATP. Okay, metabolism. To generate more ATP for muscle to contract, all right? But it won't stop, so it keeps using up ATP, and this keeps going. It will also produce, in the absence of enough oxygen, 会变成无氧呼吸. Okay, so it will generate lactate, 乳酸, and also produce a lot of CO2 and heat. The muscle tissue cannot cope with all this amount of contraction. So it will cause cell damage and body temperature increase without control. It cannot control, results in malignant hyperthermia. Okay, 体温可以高到40度. Have you seen this medical drama? It's probably when you are very young, okay? It's a very famous medical drama, 麻醉风暴. In the first 第一集, it starts with the case of a patient going to surgery. And after anesthesia, 麻醉之后呢, his body temperature increased significantly. And the patient died. Okay, and the story begins. All right, that's malignant hyperthermia. All right, so the drama starts 2015. You can look it up if you are interested. And during the surgery, the patient happened malignant hyperthermia. Okay, they tried to give antidote, 给解药, but it didn't work. All right? This is a plot that often used in medical drama. The Japanese medical drama, Dr. S, also have a scene about this disease. Okay.